on, y'all. Halloween is not just about cute costumes and trick-or-treating. Who cares what you want it to be about? This is a seriously demonic day. Hello and welcome back to my channel, Truth Seekers. Today we're going to be talking about a highly requested topic, and that is, drumroll please, should Christians be celebrating Halloween? Now we're going to start off by discussing what Halloween is, and then we're going to talk about the history of it, and then we'll go into God's stance on it. And lastly, we will end with me giving 5 reasons I believe Christians should most definitely not be celebrating Halloween. Make sure that you leave a thumbs up on this video, subscribe to my channel for more content like this, and without further ado, let's jump right in. So first, let's start by answering the simple question, what is Halloween? So, according to the internet, Halloween is a holiday celebrated each year on October 31st. The tradition originated with the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, when people would light bonfires and wear costumes to ward off ghosts. So that's a base definition off the internet. However, if you were to ask someone what Halloween was today in this day and age, I think that a majority of people would answer you by saying, oh, Halloween is a day when you dress up, or my kids go trick-or-treating, or a day where you make jack-o'-lanterns and watch scary movies, right? The majority of people don't actually know what Halloween is about or what they're celebrating. They just grew up celebrating it, and so it's tradition for them. So now, before I go into the meat and potatoes of this video, I feel like this is the perfect time to give a disclaimer. With much knowledge comes a greater responsibility. You cannot unhear what I'm about to say. So if you're someone who's like, man, I love Halloween, I would never stop celebrating it, I'm gonna give you a moment to click off of this video because your view of Halloween will be changed after hearing what I'm about to say. So all right, Truth Seekers, are you ready to dive into this? We're gonna go ahead and start off with the history of Halloween. So, as you may recall from the basic definition that I just previously stated, the tradition originated with the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, when people would light bonfires and wear costumes to ward off ghosts. So naturally, the first thing that we need to explore is this Celtic festival of Samhain. And the internet honestly has all the answers for you. I don't have like a special teacher's edition. All the information that I'm going to share with you is easily accessible. So with that being said, I found this article and let's read it. Samhain is observed from sunset on October 31st to sunset on November 1st. It is the celebration that is the origin of Halloween. Samhain was first observed by Celtic pagans. Samhain marked the Celtic New Year, the end of summer, and the end of the harvest season. It also signaled the beginning of winter, which they associated with death. On this day, the Celts believed that the veil between the living and the dead was especially thin. This allowed spirits of the dead to visit the living. The meaning behind Samhain remains the same today. There are many rituals associated with Samhain today. These include dancing, feasting, taking nature walks, and building altars to honor their ancestors. Now, I see a couple of red flags in here, so let's talk about them, right? So the first being, Samhain was first observed by Celtic pagans. If you're a Christian, the word pagans should really stick out to you. But before I give you what scripture says about pagans, let's just look at what they say about themselves, right? Here we go. So paganism is a person holding religious beliefs other than those of the main world religions, specifically a non-Christian or pre-Christian religion. Early Christians often use the term to refer to non-Christians who worshipped multiple deities. And now let's jump down a little bit to pagan beliefs. One principle of the pagan movement is polytheism, the belief and veneration of multiple gods or goddesses within the pagan movement. There can be found many deities, both male and female, who have various associations and embody forces of nature, aspects of culture, and facets of human psychology. And if we go down a little bit more, I want to read one more part. Pagan ritual can take place in both public and private setting. Contemporary pagan ritual is typically geared towards facilitating altered states of awareness or shifting mindsets in order to induce such altered states of consciousness. Pagans use such elements as drumming, visualization, chanting, singing, dancing, and meditation. Okay, so clearly paganism is not of God at all. For one, they don't believe in Jesus Christ, they believe in multiple deities. For two, they worship idols. And three, they purposely try to alter their state of consciousness, which God specifically commands us not to do. Now, of course, let's jump into our main source and see what the Bible has to say. So, Revelation 21:8 says, "But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death." And if you jump down to verse 14, it says, "Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates into the city. For without are dogs and sorcerers and whoremongers and murderers and idolaters and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie." Romans chapter 1 verse 18 says, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness." And just to put one more nail in the coffin, Leviticus 20 verse 6 says, "And the soul that turneth after such as have familiar spirits and after wizards to go a whoring after them, I will even set my face against that soul and will cut him off from among his people." From these passages, we can clearly see that God is not down with pagans and they will have their place in the lake of fire. So now let's see what the Bible tells us to do about the pagan traditions and rituals, because obviously you're not a pagan just because you celebrate Halloween. You are, however, following their traditions, right? So Deuteronomy 12:30-31 says, "Take heed to thyself, that thou be not snared by following them. After that they be destroyed from before thee, and that thou inquire not after their gods, saying, How did these nations serve their gods? Even so will I do likewise. Thou shalt not do so unto the Lord thy God, for every abomination to the Lord which he hateth have they done unto their gods, for even their sons and their daughters they have burnt in the fire to their gods." Leviticus 20:23 says, "And ye shall not walk in the manners of the nation which I cast out before you, for they committed all these things, and therefore I abhorred them." Jeremiah 10:2, "Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them." And again, one more, just to get this concept extra established, 1 Corinthians 10:20, "But I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils, and not to God. And I would not that ye should have fellowship with devils." I think that last statement is really powerful. "I would not that ye have fellowship with devils." Like, you don't have to actually get on your knees and pray to the sun like the pagans do, or you don't have to sacrifice children or believe that ghosts of dead people are haunting you in order to have fellowship with devils. All you have to do is partake in their pagan traditions. You throwing on your witch and zombie costumes is enough help for them. And it's really interesting because I saw this video on YouTube where this Christian man was like, yes, Halloween used to be this demonic day, but that's not what it is in our culture now, to say that like we shouldn't be judging the holiday based off of how it started. And I was thinking, there's no way that we as Christians are naive enough to think that the original reason Halloween was celebrated just disappeared, like pagans are just no more. Maybe that's like what we want to believe, but the truth is that to this very day, some extremely perverted and evil things are happening in the shadows on Halloween. And as we participate in their traditions and make a mockery of what is very real, they are laughing at us because they know that we are blindly giving place to the devil. So now that we've analyzed what a pagan truly is and what God thinks about pagans, let's jump on to the next red flag. So it says, "On this day the pagans believed the veil between the living and the dead was especially thin. This allowed spirits of the dead to visit the living." Come on, y'all. Halloween is not just about cute costumes and trick-or-treating. Who cares what you want it to be about? This is a seriously demonic day. Like, I honestly wonder if the lollipop arguments that y'all use to justify celebrating Halloween, because I saw a good amount of videos on YouTube where Christians were justifying celebrating this holiday, I wonder if y'all would use these arguments on God. Like, oh God, I know it started off as demonic, and of course, some people might still see it like that, but the majority of us, we just like to ignore that. We just do it for the candy and scary movies. I guarantee God would be staring at you with the straightest face. We need to stop taking the spiritual realm lightly. They literally tell you no one is trying to hide what this holiday is about. On this day, the pagans believed the veil between the living and the dead was especially thin. This allowed spirits of the dead to visit the living. Do y'all not know what God says about communicating with the dead? Allow me. Deuteronomy 18:11. "Or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer." What's a necromancer? Hey Siri, what's a necromancer?
Necromancy is the practice of magic or black magic involving communication with the dead by summoning their spirits as apparitions or visions, or by resurrection for the purpose of divination, imparting the means to foretell future events, discovery of hidden knowledge, returning a person to life, or to use the dead as a weapon.
So a necromancer, for those of you who missed it, is someone who attempts to communicate with the dead. So now the question is, God, how do you feel about necromancy, right? And so the very next verse says, "For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord, and because these abominations the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee." So now we've established that God is one, not only not down with pagans, but two, he is also not down with us following their traditions, and three, the purpose behind the holiday of Samhain, the veil between the living and the dead being torn down, is also an abomination to God. Are y'all starting to see the picture that I'm painting for you? Okay, so now let's briefly discuss the last red flag I saw, and that is that there are many rituals associated with Samhain today. These include dancing, feasting, taking nature walks, and building altars to honor their ancestors. Now, I don't know if this stuck out to y'all, but those are all forms of worship. And if you're thinking, well, feasting, that's not really, worship, that's just celebration. It wasn't just any feast. They would put a serving at the head of the table for their ancestors and would eat in complete silence. Now, again, I know that a lot of you are not doing these things on Halloween. However, that is what the day is for. That is what it is about. And I do not see how we can, in good consciousness, just ignore it and act like that's not even a part of it at all. You know what I mean? All right, so now that we've talked about what Halloween is and the history of it, let's talk about what Halloween looks like today. No one is arguing that it looks completely different for the majority of people in this culture than it did back then. I do not believe that you and your neighbor are trying to talk to the dead. It honestly probably means nothing more to you than taking your kids trick-or-treating, dressing up, decorating skulls and skeletons, and telling scary stories. But it means so much more to the people who created it and to many pagans who still see the days for what they are. Now, let's go ahead and end this video by talking about whether Christians should celebrate Halloween. Now, I am aware that we've kind of been discussing this throughout the video, but I just want to put it into 5 simple reasons I believe we should not be celebrating it. So reason number 1 is that it's a pagan holiday that has long been known as the Festival of the Dead. Now, I know this one's gonna get some backlash, so let me just attack it first, because every time I tell a Christian I don't celebrate Halloween or Christmas because they're pagan holidays, they always respond with, well, why do you celebrate your birthday? I never really understood that one because I can show you numerous places where birthdays are celebrated in the Bible, including Jesus's birthday. Matthew 2:11, and when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasure, they presented unto him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. They even brought him gifts on his birthday, right? Another birthday celebration is Luke 1:57 and 58. Now Elizabeth's full time came that she should be delivered, and she brought forth a son. And her neighbors and her cousins heard how the Lord had showed great mercy upon her, and they rejoiced with her. Neighbors and cousins, that sounds like a pretty lit party to me. And on top of that, Halloween is a pagan holiday for communicating with the dead, which I've already showed you the Bible says is an abomination. Reason number 2, the Bible warns us not to follow after pagan traditions. I feel like I've already given a pretty detailed explanation on this one, so let me just bring one more scripture back to your remembrance. Leviticus 20:23, and ye shall not walk in the manners of this nation which I cast out before you, for they committed all these things, and therefore I abhorred them. God is saying that he regarded them with disgust and hatred. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to be caught celebrating something that disgusted my God. Reason number 3, there is a strong demonic presence on Halloween because occultists practice divination. Now, as Christians, we know about the spiritual realm and about Satan's main purpose, which is to seek souls to destroy. So rather than buying into the narrative and playing dress up on a day when Satan is on turbo mode, maybe we should be praying and interceding for the darkness that is being encouraged and being practiced. Reason number 4, a lot of the rituals that modern culture partake in on Halloween are actual rituals used in witchcraft by witches on Halloween. Now, this kind of goes hand in hand with the previous one, but the reason pagans would dress up was to scare off the dead spirits. They weren't dressing up just for fun. They would also try and scare the spirits off by carving faces in a pumpkin. Sound familiar? Or another example, bobbing for apples, which is a part of our culture, but in witchcraft covens, they would close the ritual by eating an apple. So even though you're not doing these things with the same intent as witches or occultists or pagans, that does not mean that you are not still entertaining the same evil spirits. Lastly, reason number 5, participating in Halloween gives sanction for a holiday that promotes witches, divination, haunted houses, and other occultic practices. Everything that Halloween stands for goes explicitly against Jesus Christ. So why would we as Christians partake in it? And that's for you to answer between you and God. Because of all this information, I don't celebrate Halloween and my children will not celebrate Halloween, but we each have to make our own decision based off our own convictions. Now, of course, I'm not saying that if you celebrate Halloween, you're going to hell. I'm not God. I've given you the scriptures and the facts, and now you should go do your own study and decide for yourself. That brings us to the end of this video, and I know that this is one of those videos that isn't fun because it feels like I'm just stomping on the party, but as a Christian influencer, your soul is more important to me than you liking me. I really hope that this helps. If you have any questions, make sure you leave them below. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel for more godly content. Stay blessed, stay girded. Bye.
Say hard feelings, tell them this is only hard truths. Yeah. This ain't hard feelings, tell them this is only hard truths. Yeah. This ain't hard feelings, tell them this is only hard truths.